And you are still watching our live broadcast as we commemorate Nigeria's 63rd independence anniversary. We are live in our studios in Lagos, but you also have visuals on the screen of a special parade happening in Aso Rock in Nigeria's Federal Capital Territory. Now, the president, as well as the vice president, governors, and other special guests of honor are present at that parade right now, inspecting the guard and having witnessed the change of guard as well.
Yes, it's still our special Independence Day broadcast. News Central Television. It's now time for us to, examine the rule of law as Nigeria marks its 63rd Independence Day anniversary. And we're not doing this alone. We have the pleasure of having Professor Chidi Odinkalu join us for, apologies for that, Dr. Samson Osagie joining us for this conversation. Is a senior advocate of Nigeria. Dr. Osagie, warm welcome to you. Thanks for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much. And let me quickly correct. I'm not a senior advocate of Nigeria, please. Samson Osagie.
Okay, all right.
Thank you very much.
So, legal practitioner and lecturer at the National Institute of Legislative and Democratic Studies. There we go. Dr. Osagie, thank you so much for joining us this morning. All right. So in terms, let's start with, thank you. Let's start with the president's speech. There didn't seem to be too much in line or in regards to the rule of law, which is the conversation we'll be having with you, that the president touched on in his speech. So if we don't see too much from there, let's just go to looking at from the day the president became president, May 29th, till now, in terms of the rule of law and how that might give us an idea of what his administration might do. What do you think we've seen so far? What picture are the steps that the president has taken in different regards, painting for us as to how his administration and the rule of law will coexist?
Well, yes, first and foremost, happy Independence Day to all Nigerians, particularly at this point in time in our nation's history, when the socio-economic situation appeared to be so hard on almost every strata of the society. The rule of law is a sine qua non for any democratic society founded on constitutional democracy. And it usually presupposes the fact that justice is a necessary ingredient, for the society to run seamlessly, and that all persons are equal before the law, and that the decision now, over the years, we have seen that the country has wobbled and fumbled over upholding the rule of law at different points in time, both during the military and during civilian rule. Now, in the last administration, we have come to see that a number of steps have been taken in order to ensure that our democracy is consolidated by way of obedience to the rule of law with respect to obeying constitutional provisions regarding implementation and execution of executive responsibilities. A number of appointments, National Assembly confirmation have been done in accordance with the law. That a number of court decisions have also taken place. A number of them being taken at the trial court and others going on appeal. There are still ongoing cases. I believe that this government cannot afford not to be a stickler to the rule of law, because that is what we define its democratic credentials, and I believe that it will do so. And so far, so good. I do not think that there is any reason to think otherwise. But the main challenge besetting this country at this moment is the socio-economic challenge that faces us right now, which borders on the high cost of living that has been precipitated by the removal of fuel subsidy. And the president's speech appears to have dealt so much on that, because that is what the focus of the Nigerian people really are at the moment. I am not sure that the president is ignorant of the fact that he heads a democratic government founded on constitutional democracy, and he cannot do less than uphold the rule of law.
Now, Dr. Osagie, we can't have a conversation on rule of law without talking about the state of human rights. For a long period of our nation governed by the military, how there are no respecters of human rights, not of brutalization of ordinary citizens, and what have you. Now, we've since...
So let me just step in there very quickly. In terms of the human rights and the rule of law, I wanted to talk about what the president quickly said at the beginning of his speech. And he, of course, said that this is the fact that Nigeria had democratically elected a 7th consecutive civilian government, and Nigeria has proven its commitment to democracy and that the rule of law remains our guiding light. Dr. Osagie, you did talk a little bit about the fact that this administration does have some questions surrounding it. And I think that's as much as the president has said, gone through this speech many, many times. But did you expect to hear more from him? Because even in recent times, we've seen the DSS finding itself under the spotlight in certain issues. We found other organs of government also finding themselves in the spotlight. Were you expecting more from the president in regard to re-emphasizing, reiterating, recommitting, and really putting down a stamp on in this speech in terms of the rule of law for his administration? Dr. Osagie, are you with us? All right, it seems that there might be some technical difficulties there, but we'll be getting Dr. Samson Osagie right back to join us as we talk. Of course, I know Gbenga, you wanted to ask him something.
And I mean, from live visuals we've seen that I think the civilians have joined in this fanfare and parade currently ongoing at the forecourt of the presidential villa in Abuja. Do we have Dr. Osagie back online? Okay.
Well, what we do know is that early on in his administration or presidency, as it may be, President Tinubu said he would govern with the rule of law and according to the Constitution. And of course, many Nigerians might say, okay, it's easy to say those words because the presidents right before President Tinubu, and that is, of course, Muhammadu Buhari, made the same assurances when he was inaugurated in 2015.
And I mean, in the few months that the president, we've also seen the contention of former EFCC boss and also governor.
Yes, and so there are questions to be answered in terms of what this administration will do going forward. So he did promise to respect the Constitution and the rule of law, that would also underpin his economic programs. Now, it is also these same promises that Nigerians have heard before, but also, as I said, in recent times, we've seen the DSS under some spotlights. I do believe Dr. Samson Osagie is back with us. Dr. Osagie, are you with us now?
Yes, please. I'm here, Tolu.
All right, let's pick up our conversation. Gbenga.
Now, Dr. Osagie was earlier.
Yes, please.
I did say, you know, Nigeria's history since independence, we've gone through a series of military governments and civilians. The fact that we're now in our 24th year of uninterrupted democratic experience, how would you rate the level of human rights in Nigeria today? Have we moved, are we better than where we were during the days of the military in government?
Well, there is this saying that the most benevolent military administration cannot be compared to any democratic government, and certainly they cannot be the same. The concept of the rule of law and the enforcement of democratic fundamental human rights are such very important ingredients of any democratic society. It encompasses the freedom of speech, the freedom of the press, the right to movement, and all those human rights that are contained in Chapter 2 of the Constitution. Definitely, democratic governance will offer a better enforcement of our democratic rights. We may not have gotten it to, totally, to a level of 100%, but between the range of 1 and 10, I am sure we must have been able to achieve about 5%, in ensuring that our democratic rights are guaranteed. There is still a lot more to be done. Under a democracy, the people have more rights to express themselves than under the military. In fact, democracy is not going to offer you the opportunity of having ouster clauses in legislations that are made by way of decrees and edicts. So I can say that while the military set back the hand of the clock in our quest for democratic consolidation, The 24 years of our democracy in Nigeria may not have yielded much of socio-economic advancement and development for our country, but certainly the people have enjoyed better rights than under the military. And like I was saying, that Mr. President in his speech this morning did alluded to the fact that his administration committed to the upholding of the rule of law and the democratic rights of the citizen. But his main focus was on the socio-economic challenges facing the country and the steps the government was taking. While I agree with Famoroti that it is not about the policies that are important, it is about the implementation. So I believe that as part of the enforcement and upholding of the rule of law in these biting times of the economy on the part of the citizens, government should ensure that the rules set out for implementation of the economic policies of government towards alleviating the sufferings of the masses must be strictly adhered to, and that will be part of the rule of law. And I think that when the benefits of these economic measures are felt by the downtrodden in the society, then we can say that indeed government has done a lot more in improving the lot of the people. So I believe that this government is determined to do that. And there is evidence that it's a government that is committed, to upholding the rule of law and the rights of the citizens.
Okay, so you say there is some evidence that this is a government committed to upholding the rule of law and the rights of the citizens. But I think in terms of trends, when it comes to Nigerian politics or governance, some Nigerians may have a bit of a different overview. So as I said earlier, during the technical loss with you, we heard some of these similar commitments and words from former President Muhammadu Buhari when he also took office in 2015. But shortly after he took office, we saw a number of issues that continue to mire the Buhari administration in fundamental human rights and, of course, rule of law situations. There was flouting of court orders almost up to the last days of his administration. Particularly, we remember the situation with the new Naira, the redesigned Naira situation and the Supreme Court's order. There was the situation with the Shiites in Zaria, Kaduna State, serial violation of court orders. So there's also a trend. We also saw that with the Goodluck Jonathan administration as well as the Obasanjo administration. So some would say there is a trend of Nigerian leaders or presidents in particular in this democratic dispensation paying lip service to the Constitution and to the rule of law. What are the structures in place to ensure that we are able to hold political office holders, particularly even the president, accountable? He's the person occupying the office of the citizen, meant to be responsible to Nigerians and meant to be the person who upholds the Constitution the most across board. So have we matured enough to have structures in place that hold him accountable?
Yes, you are correct. To the extent that former leaders of democratic regimes in this country seems to have also exhibited some nonchalance towards upholding the rule of law and defense of human rights, in some cases. You are right, it is not also a yardstick to measure what this administration would do in office. Like I did say during the period of the interference by network, this government is still in transition, and it was greeted by huge economic challenges when it started. I believe very strongly that this government, I don't speak for them, but I have a conviction that this government does not have any option but to ensure that it does things differently with a view to upholding the rule of law. For example, you're talking about structures that are put in place. It is not only the government that must put the structures in place. The citizens' participation and awareness is a structure that can help government, to sit and be on its toes. For example, you will agree with me that this is one government that has come into office that have met so much stiff opposition, from the very get-go, flowing from the elections into the administration and the policies that started to implement. So I believe that at this point in time, Nigeria of 2023 is no longer Nigeria of 2011 when Goodluck Jonathan became president. It is also no longer Nigeria of 2015 and 2019 when Buhari held sway as president. The citizenry has become more enlightened, they have become more courageous, they have become more combative and aggressive in pursuing their rights and holding government accountable. And so I tell you that to the extent that these citizens have a right to freely express their views without harassment and intimidation, and they do so within the bounds of the law, I think that is rule of law at work. And I believe that those are sufficient enough. And I believe that this government is going to be tolerant enough, to hear those views and work by them. So in the final analysis, I am sure that this government has no choice because we have a vibrant citizenry and civil society and even the labor movement, that are ready to hold the government and all the organs of government accountable, all the institutions of government, accountable to their responsibilities.
Now, Dr. Osagie, talking about accountability, and as we wind down on this segment of the program, look into the future. What recommendations do you have for Nigeria to strengthen the rule of law and ensure that it continues to be a cornerstone of the country's legal and political system in the coming years?
Yes, first and foremost, one of the striking recommendations I must make is that this government must ensure that all court orders and judgments that have been given by courts, superior courts of record and courts of the land has to be obeyed, no matter how unpalatable. The law provides for steps to be taken when a party to a suit, even if the government is a party to a suit and the judgment is against it, it must be seen to be implementing and according to the respect it deserves. That is one. It must respect all laws. Two, the government must constantly engage the citizens and including civil society and the labor movement. You can't be too tired about talking. You must engage. That constant engagement is very important. And it is that engagement that will direct the parameters within which government will have to operate against the backdrop of the law. Three, the citizens must not be quiet in drawing government attention to anomalies of any government institutions or organ that is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. And four, there must be strict adherence to the provisions of the constitutions and the laws of the land. And I think that is the ultimate. When laws are flagrantly violated, as we have seen in the case of the management of the central bank, when laws are flagrantly violated, it does not only affect the institution itself, it affects the entire fabric of the socio-economic life of the people. And I think that is very important. So the constitution of the land, which is the ground, and all other laws made in that behalf for the regulation of government activities and public policy must be strictly adhered to. And I think if government strictly follows this, we are on the path to recovery, from both our social, political, and economic challenges that we have faced in this country for a long time.
And I'll follow up with Gbenga's question because, of course, you mentioned the role of the citizen. Also looking ahead as well for this administration, what are we expecting of the citizenry? What do we expect the citizens to do to not only assist the government in upholding the rule of law, but also insist on it, ensuring that one person's rights is the same right that another is given, that when one person is unjustly treated or unjustly treated or unfairly treated, illegally treated, we all see it as illegal treatment for every citizen, so that we're equally demanding justice for ourselves across board and across the country.
Absolutely right. The question is absolutely correct. I give you an example of what happened in the Ministry of Work recently. I'm sure you are aware. This is a way of constructive engagement of the citizens of authorities of government. Because when things are done without following rules, it must have repercussions. So my advice to the citizen is that they must remain active and participatory and doing so constructively. They must not be participating and active, just with a view to causing disruptions in government activities and all of that. And they must not also abuse their rights. So if government or institutions of government are not doing the right thing, the citizen must be ready, willing, courageous enough, to confront the authorities, with viable arguments and providing solutions to what should be done. So the role of the citizen is to constantly engage government constructively and doing so within the powers granted them as citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And authorities must also respect the rights of the citizens to engage them, because government exists only for the welfare and security of the citizens.
So, Dr. Osagie, we have focused largely on President Tinubu's administration. We focus also on the citizens. But let's talk about what happens to be the sort of the middlemen or the middlemen and women in between that conversation when it comes to the rule of law, and that's the judiciary in regards to Nigeria's democracy. Do you think Nigeria's democracy, or rather Nigeria's judiciary, has done enough to also cement Nigeria's democracy? 63 years after independence, is the judiciary, one, still the hope of the last hope of the common man in Nigeria? Number two, there are those who also think that the judiciary has been captured, what maybe South Africans would refer to as state capture. We see governors giving cars to chief justices and magistrates in their states. Do you think the judiciary is still able to really say that it has the independence and the integrity that it needs and that Nigerians need of it in our democratic journey?
If you ask me, I will tell you that the judiciary has been under tremendous pressure, both from the political elites and from the citizens themselves. And the pressure is unimaginable. And I think if you ask me, I give them kudos. Just like every other system, there could be some bad eggs within the system. But I must tell you that the judiciary has managed, to continue to remain that bastion of hope for the citizens. Because sometimes when you see judgments that comes out of court, you may think one way and you see another judgment that comes out from the same court. You begin to wonder, was it not the same court that did the same judgment? So in other words, I am saying that the pressure under which the judiciary has come under from the citizens and from the political elites is enough to derail the independence of the judiciary. So for us as citizens, we must also continue to have that trust and hope in an impartial and independent judiciary, where we treat each case of malfeasance on the part of any judicial officer on his own merit, rather than use a single tar to run the entire judiciary down. Because nothing destroys a system than lack of confidence. So I want to say that the judiciary has managed to remain the bastion against the backdrop of the pressure it has put into, that be put under. And I say this because if there are cases that ought not to be taken to the court, that the political elites and the citizens find themselves doing them in court. And that is why we have alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. So it shouldn't be all cases that go to court and then you come out and blackmail the judiciary if you lose. So I believe that the citizens also have a duty to protect the judiciary. The political class especially also have a duty to protect the judiciary by accepting outcome of elections, that have been conducted, even though not in all cases, but in some cases. You see elections that have been clearly won and lost in some cases, and you see parties fighting, to reclaim a mandate that was never given. So I believe that we do not have choice, because the judiciary remains one of the very important organs of government that a democratic administration, a democratic government cannot do without. It is one of the foundations of a constitutional democracy. It is the responsibility of both government and the citizens to uphold the independence of judiciary and continue to protect it, from the pressures of the elites and of the citizens alike, so that they can continue to discharge their duty. We can't do without the judiciary in any democratic system. So I believe that within this context that they have operated, within the pressure under which they have come under, the judiciary have done their best, given the circumstances.
All right, Dr. Samson Osagie, thank you so much. Legal practitioner and lecturer, National Institute of Legislative and Democratic Studies. Thank you so much for joining us as we looked at the rule of law on Nigeria's 63rd independence anniversary, and of course, the conversation on this democratic journey ahead of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tolu, for having me.
All right,
Happy
fantastic.
Independence Day.
Same to you, sir.